Part 10. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 91. Chapter 91 Outspokenness defeats Zhangziu. Seeing the barrage of joyful atmosphere restored in the live broadcast room, even the guests looked more harmonious than before. Zhangziu tried hard to keep the expression on his face from becoming distorted, almost expressionless. She kept seeing the car that came to pick her up parked at the door of the styling room. Sister Xiao, the car is here. Zhangziu took a deep breath and stood up. He glanced at the barely touched yogurt and fruit at his hand and said, "Let's go." Waiting to meet Director Wei and get the opportunity she longed for, Zhang Lingzi is still just her defeated enemy. Looking at Zhangziu, who was striding out with his head held high, Xiao Tao tried his best to adjust his expression so that he looked confident in his artist, and then he trotted after him. The car stopped at the entrance of a quiet and low-key club. Zhangziu was helped out of the car by Xiao Tao. His eyes swept across the row of luxury cars parked on both sides of the road, and his eyes illuminated by the street lights added a bit of ambition. Zhang Yuding had been there for a while, and now she finally saw Zhangziu's figure and hurriedly walked over. After getting closer, he looked up and down, and then nodded with satisfaction. "Yes, when you meet Director Wei later, don't pretend to be delicate all the time. I heard that Director Wei prefers actors who are not submissive and have their own opinions. Also, many people say that Director Wei has a bit of a weird temper, but I can't say exactly why. I have never met Director Wei in person, so we will act according to the circumstances. Even if we fail to please Director Wei, we cannot let this person stay with us." Bad impression. Zhangziu nodded obediently, but felt a little disdainful in his heart. With her previous unfailing experience, she will definitely be able to seize the role this time. The three of them raised their feet and were about to walk towards the door of the club, when another car drove up behind them. Zhang Yuding glanced back subconsciously. When she saw clearly who was getting out of the car, her eyelids twitched. "Tong Yu." She called out the person's name, and Zhangziu, who was walking forward, paused. When he turned around, he saw a very capable-looking woman wearing a white slim-fitting suit with short hair also looking towards her. Looking at each other, Tong Yu pulled out a warm smile from the corner of her mouth. Her tone was quite polite, but the content she spoke did not sound very polite. "I see that Miss Zhangziu has just quit the show. She has been tired for a few days and has not had a good rest. Is she going out to socialize now?" The smile that Zhangziu maintained at the corner of his mouth disappeared for a moment and then returned to his face, but it was somewhat unnatural. "After all, I am still young and full of energy." Tong Yu resisted the urge to roll her eyes. This meant that she was younger than Zhang Lingzi, but only 1 year younger. To be precise, it was only a few months. Just a sarcastic sentence was enough. Tong Yu smiled and changed the subject. "It seems that you two are also here for the health director." Zhang Yuding took the words. "Don't say you're not. Then let's each rely on our abilities. You didn't even come with the artists under you, so you're just on your own." Although Zhang Yuding felt a little panicked, her face was full of disdain. "Although your Zhang Lingzi's performance in variety shows is okay, it's just a small variety show. That's it, no one can come, so it seems that we are destined to miss this opportunity." Tong Yu secretly cursed and looked fierce, then glanced at Zhangziu, who was wearing heavy makeup and dressed up. "Don't use too much force. It's better to use too much force." After a brief confrontation at the door, the three of them all understood that today's focus was not on the verbal dispute at this moment, and they entered into a real battlefield with a tacit truce. The banquet hall is already full of people with fragrant clothes and shadows on their temples. Although today is the birthday party of Wei Minmin, a new star in the industry, almost 80% of the people present are here for Wei Minmin's brother-in-law, Director Wei Xiaoyi. You can tell just by looking at the birthday girl. Wei Minmin is surrounded by peers of similar age, while Wei Xiao is surrounded by investors and brokers. But when you first come in, You naturally have to say happy birthday to today's birthday boy, otherwise it would be too rude. Zhang Ziyu held the birthday gift Zhang Yuding helped prepare in his hand, and stepped forward confidently while holding up his skirt. She and Wei Minmin had been on the same set before. Although she had few scenes and didn't even have a few words to say to Wei Minmin, at least she had such a respectable relationship. Minmin, I wish you a happy birthday. Wei Minmin had actually noticed Zhang Ziyu for a long time. Because she heard her uncle mention Zhang Lingzi's name several times in the past few days, she took the opportunity to watch the live broadcast of Wilderness Survival. She remembered that Zhang Ziyu was among them. Before the show ended, people came to her birthday party. How could she not be surprised? After taking the handed gift, he glanced at it casually and put it aside. Wei Minmin asked herself the most curious thing first, aren't you filming Wilderness Survival? Zhang Ziyu couldn't help but froze. She never expected that Wei Minmin, who had just been promoted to one of the 4 big flowers, and should have been extremely busy, would still have time to watch the live broadcast. Isn't this a bit too unprofessional? At this moment, he could only smile and explain, then you probably haven't seen the latest live broadcast. I have already chosen to quit. Wei Minmin was a little surprised. If it wasn't a good shoot, why did you quit? Zhang Ziyu. She finally understood why some people in the circle said that Wei Minmin was the replica of Zhang Kaiwen. Both of them spoke the same way, speaking more directly from their heart than from their brains. Shouldn't we choose to tacitly ignore this inconvenient topic at this time? But the other party is the niece of director Tang Tangwei, so she naturally has the right to do whatever she wants, so she has to give back even if she doesn't want to answer. I accidentally got injured while filming the show. Hearing this, Wei Minmin couldn't help but look Zhang Ziyu up and down for a moment, but in the end he couldn't see where she was injured. Then you are quite strong. You are injured and you still come to my birthday party. I know. You definitely didn't come here for me. Hey, my brother-in-law is over there, if you can get in front of him, go ahead. Since I didn't really come to her birthday party, and I dressed up even more grandly than the birthday girl, I'd better not bother her in front of her. Zhang Ziyu tried his best to keep a smile, turned around and left. Having just walked a few steps, I heard Wei Minmin's voice coming from behind me, the person who interrupted our chat is gone. Come, let's continue chatting. Where did we just talk? She stumbled and almost fell directly onto the wine table in front of her. When she returned to Zhang Yuding wanted to take her directly in the direction of Director Wei. But after seeing the expression on Zhang Ziyu's face clearly, his brows suddenly furrowed. I just asked you to say happy birthday, why are you coming back with such a face? Wei Minmin has a bad attitude towards you. Don't worry about that. Come on, everyone in the industry knows her temperament, she can't speak her mind, and she can't get along with herself. Zhang Ziyu took a deep breath and said, I'm fine. But I'm still angry, right? Wei Minmin, just wait for her. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 92. Chapter 92 The Art of Speaking. Seeing that Zhang Yuding had already led Zhang Ziyu towards the direction of the Director of Health, Tong Yu did not rush to be the first. Instead, she delivered the prepared birthday gift to the birthday girl step by step. She only used the corner of her eye to pay attention to the person who was not far away. The dynamics of Director Wei. She planned to wait until the other person seemed less busy before going over to say hello. Although the person who is getting the most attention today is Director Wei, who has not run away, today is also Wei Minmin's birthday party. Zhang Yuding is so careless and makes her purpose obvious when she comes, for fear that others will not know that she is here to recommend people. She didn't care about what the real owner of the party thought. She wouldn't do such a thing and couldn't do it. Bulet and Chengxiang was just about to find a corner to sit down and take a rest, when Wei Minmin in front of her took the initiative and said to her, "Ms. Tong." Tong Yu's face suddenly showed surprise. If she showed up with Zhang Lingzi now, it would not be difficult for others to guess her identity through Zhang Lingzi. But now she came alone. When she handed over the gift, she was still using the name of the company. Wei Minmin could still accurately call her who she was, which made her a little confused. As an agent, do you deserve to be so well known in the industry? Shouldn't it be possible? Thinking about it, Tong Yu's face remained impeccable. I didn't expect Miss Wei to recognize me. I'm honored to be able to represent the company to send birthday wishes to Miss Wei. Wei Minmin could tell that her tone was official, but she didn't care much. She would recognize Tong Yu, naturally, because she had gotten to know Zhang Lingzi. It just so happened that what she cared about now was another thing. I want to know about Zhang Lingzi's archery. Is it the coach that Ms. Tong found for her? Can you introduce me to him? No one knows that the sweet-looking classmate Wei Minmin actually has a martial arts dream hidden in his heart. Ever since he accidentally entered the Wilderness Survival live broadcast room a few days ago because of the name mentioned by his uncle, the videos of Zhang Lingzi archery are still there. She keeps it on her phone. Tong Yu was finally stunned by this extremely jumping question. Archery? Coach, she took 2 seconds to recover and shook her head at Wei Minmin, who looked expectant. I didn't find a coach for Xiao 11. She should have learned it in the past. If not for this, the first time I participated in Wilderness Survival, I, as a manager, didn't even know she had this skill. Although Wei Minmin was a little disappointed when she heard this, she saw that Tong Yu didn't look like she was lying, so she could only accept it. Okay then. Looks like her martial arts dream will have to wait a little longer. Tong Yu wanted to walk aside, but after enduring it again and again, she still couldn't hold it back and asked, "Does Miss Wei also watch the live broadcast of Wilderness Survival? I heard my uncle mentioned Zhang Lingzi and said she could shoot arrows, so I took the time to read a little bit." Wei Minmin replied casually, but Tong Yu's heart was pounding. She wanted to ask why Director Wei mentioned her artist inexplicably, but seeing that Wei Minmin seemed a little uninterested in her because she couldn't learn archery, she held it back in the end. Actually, she didn't have much confidence when she came here this time. Although Zhang Lingzi's performance in this Wilderness Survival was quite amazing, Director Wei's new drama, even though the title has not been revealed yet, has attracted celebrities of all sizes in the industry to flock to it. Even the best actor and best actress, they are all competing, and their own artists are not far behind in terms of status in the industry or acting skills. But she watched Zhang Yuding keep making little moves for Director Wei's new drama during this period. If Zhang Ziyu was really allowed to join Director Wei's crew, she would really feel sick in her heart. The reason why I was able to fight against Zhang Yuding and Zhang Ziyu, the cousins, just now at the entrance of the club was just to lose the opponent. In fact, she had no idea. But now, after listening to Wei Minmin's words, Tong Yu couldn't help but have more confidence in Zhang Lingzi. After all, a busy man like Director Wei would not mention a small actor for no reason. I just don't know why the other party mentioned my artist. Thinking of this, her eyes involuntarily moved in the direction of Director Wei. Coincidentally, the opponent's location is not far from here. In front of Director Wei were Zhang Yuding and Zhang Ziyu, who had just squeezed in. Although the overall atmosphere of this birthday party was quite quiet, there were many guests. Even if they occasionally spoke in low voices, it would not be very clear if there were too many people. Although Tong Yu didn't know what Zhang Yuding and Zhang Ziyu said to Director Wei just now, and what Director Wei replied now, she could guess that it was true by looking at the expressions on the cousins' faces that gradually turned from confident to stiff. Not what they wanted to hear. Feeling happy. The reality is that what Wei Xiao said was even more rude than Tong Yu had guessed. The eldest nephew's observation results were sent to him last night, neither earlier nor later. After watching it, he called his friend Li Shuo for nearly half an hour, and then personally searched for some video clips related to wilderness survival programs. Among them, the one with the highest number of clicks was the one with Zhang Lingzi as the protagonist. But even with the endorsement of his eldest nephew and Li Shuo, he still considered Zhang Lingzi as one of the backup candidates to play the role in the new drama. Where did Zhang Ziyu come from with such confidence that he ran directly to him and introduced himself? If you go through the serious audition process later, he might even take a high look. Originally, he had a pretty good impression of this girl, but now, he might as well not say anything about it. So when Zhang Yuding vaguely expressed her desire to give Zhang Ziyu a more important role in his new drama, and at the same time met Zhang Ziyu's expectant eyes, Wei Xiao looked at Zhang Ziyu's face. She has a face that is somewhat similar to Zhang Lingzi's in last night's video but has a completely different temperament. She responded with 3 words directly, "I won't consider it." Zhang Yuding almost couldn't keep the expression on her face for a while. She wanted to ask why she didn't consider it, but she swallowed her words when she saw Wei Xiao wave to them impatiently. Took Zhang Ziyu, who was still sullen and unwilling to leave, with his eyes telling her not to say any more, so as not to make Director Wei even more unhappy. Zhang Ziyu reluctantly prepared to leave with Zhang Yuding. When he turned around, he noticed Tong Yu walking towards him and couldn't help but pause in his footsteps. She had just suffered such a misfortune. If Tong Yu failed to please Director Wei like Tong Yu, she might feel better. "I'd like to have a drink before leaving. By the way, look at how Tong Yu is in the same embarrassment as them." With just one glance, Zhang Yuding guessed what her cousin was planning, and her heart moved accordingly. He brought 2 drinks over and said, "Then we'll leave later." How could Tong Yu not notice Zhang Yuding and Zhang Ziyu looking towards her, but she still walked firmly to Wei Xiao, who had just sat down to rest. "Hello, Director Wei, I am Zhang Lingzi's agent Tong Yu." "Oh, what's the matter?" Not being kicked out, Tong Yu was convinced at first. "I heard that the new drama prepared by Director Wei is currently casting." Seeing Director Wei also frowning at Tong Yu, Zhang Ziyu almost laughed with a sip of drink in his mouth. Her side is not going well, and now it seems that Zhang Lingzi can't even hope to get a role in Director Wei's new drama. Wei Xiao said calmly, "Are you here to recommend your artist too?" Tong Yu felt a sudden shock when she saw this, and said after careful consideration, "It's not a recommendation, I just want to ask Director Wei for a spot in the audition. Regardless of whether Xiao 11 can be favored by Director Wei, I think it's good for her. It's a rare experience." Wei Xiao's expression softened slightly. "You are better at talking than the one just now." Zhang Yuding watched from a short distance away and put down the goblet she was holding. What did Director Wei just say? Shouldn't Tong Yu leave in the same embarrassment as them? Why are she still laughing? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 93. Chapter 93. Good luck. Seeing Tong Yu toasting Director Wei another glass of wine before preparing to walk away, Zhang Yuding still couldn't suppress the confusion in her heart, put down the drink in her hand and chased after her. "Tong Yu, wait." Tong Yu paused for a moment, then turned around to see Zhang Yuding walking towards her, and Zhang Ziyu following closely behind. She raised her eyebrows and seemed to be smiling. "I'm very busy, you'd better be busy." Zhang Yuding immediately became angry when she heard that. "If you are busy, I won't be busy. If Director Wei hadn't had a drink with you, I wouldn't have bothered to talk to you." She gritted her teeth and endured the sarcasm. "What did you just say to Director Wei? Is it related to Director Wei's new drama?" Tong Yu felt funny when she saw her confidently asking, "Why should I tell you?" Zhang Yuding knew that Tong Yu would not say it out loud, so she simply used words to provoke her. Not everyone can have a chance in Director Wei's new drama, let alone this time it is a large-scale costume drama. "Just your Zhang Lingzi, I have only filmed a few modern idol dramas and school dramas in the past few years since my debut. It's hard for me to think of being cast in a drama directed by Wei with such qualifications. Don't have too high hopes, otherwise you will be disappointed. Tong Yu was just happy because she successfully helped Zhang Lingzi get an audition spot for a health director. She was not angry when Zhang Yuding used words to provoke her, which meant that the other party was anxious. Isn't it difficult? What I say doesn't count, and what you say doesn't count. What the director says counts. You don't have to blame our Xiao 11. Zhang Ziyu has only filmed 2 costume dramas. After finishing her words, Tong Yu glanced provocatively at Zhang Yuding, whose shoulders were shaking with her anger, and Zhang Ziyu, who had just caught up with the skirt of her dress and couldn't control her ugly face at the moment, and thought to herself, "That's right, let you catch up to find a fight." He turned his back and left coolly. She didn't have time to quarrel with such a pair of idiotic cousins. If she had time, she might as well find someone to find out about director Wei's new drama. Since she successfully got the audition spot, she can't just go through the motions. She still hopes that Zhang Lingzi can succeed in the audition. Even if it is just a small role, it is better than the previous roles Zhang Lingzi played combined. Zhang Yuding looked at Tong Yu's back and gritted her teeth, holding in her words for a while, "The villain will succeed." Zhang Ziyu managed his expression better than her, but the haze in his heart was thicker at the moment. In the final analysis, Zhang Yuding's agent only arranges jobs for her. If this job becomes useless, she can find another one. But if she misses such a rare opportunity, the loss will be really big. At this moment, Zhang Ziyu even secretly resented Zhang Yuding. No one from Zhang Lingzi came, and Tong Yu, as an agent, had a good chat with director Wei. Zhang Yuding was so anxious that she pulled her over, but what did she gain in the end? Such a comparison, you can tell the difference. After reciting in his mind that this is the eldest aunt's daughter several times, Zhang Ziyu finally regained his breath and said, "Forget it, let's go." "Are you leaving now? Otherwise, what else can you do? Kidnap the director and force him to give me the role?" Zhang Yuding had a stern expression. "Then let's go." After exiting the clubhouse door, Zhang Ziyu couldn't help but look back at the brightly lit building and clenched his fingers. The eldest aunt said that she will become a world star. Sooner or later, these people will beg her to star. Asterisk. Zhang Lingzi, who was far away in the jungle filming a program, didn't know that her current work hadn't been finished yet, and Tong Yu had arranged another difficult job for her. Being able to audition for Wei Xiao's play is just the first step. It's not unheard of for actors to be replaced because of a small problem when filming is about to start. So even if it is just an audition that has not yet been determined, it is still listed as the most important job after wilderness survival by Tong Yu. Even before Zhang Lingzi came back from filming the show, Tong Yu decisively made an appointment with a well-known acting teacher in the industry and arranged a series of acting lessons for her. In addition, the plan to improve academic qualifications is already on the agenda. Lu Zhengzheng looked at the full schedule and felt like she was dreaming back to her dark high school days. She opened her mouth and couldn't help but say, "There are so many classes to attend. Sister Tong, why don't you wait for Sister Zixi to come back and discuss it with her? I'm doing this all for her own good." Tong Yu felt that her arrangement was quite reasonable, and she didn't even take up the scientific sleep time. "If I can act in director Wei's drama, even if it's just a small role, our families from now on, I won't be called just a vase." As for the importance of having one female director and 2 female directors, Tong Yu didn't even dare to think about it. Lu Zhengzheng didn't say much after hearing this. Although people are called vase because they are beautiful, no one wants to be called that if they are an actor by profession. "Actually, there is another thing that I haven't figured out yet." Lu Zhengzheng asked curiously, "What's the matter? How come a busy person like director Wei mentioned Xiao 11? Lu Zhengzheng was immediately asked. He frowned and thought for a moment before coming up with a guess that even he didn't dare to believe. Is it possible that director Wei also watches wilderness survival? After all, before this, not only the TV series but also variety shows, Sister Zixie's filming was a bit messy. Before she was cool, she just relied on a face and messy black stuff. Think about it, I can only watch wilderness survival now. Tong Yu felt that her guess was somewhat unreliable, but she couldn't think of any other possibility, so she waved her hands and gave up. Forget it, it's a good thing after all. She has been injured this time, which can be considered as a good thing. Lu Zhengzheng thought to herself, for Sister Zixie after she woke up from her injury, it was considered a good time for her. Asterisk. Shooting photos of wilderness survival in the depths of the jungle. After exchanging food with each other for nearly 2 days, the group finally saw a blue lake embedded in the lush greenery from a distance. Zhang Kaiwen couldn't help but walk a few steps quickly, raised his hand to his forehead and stood on tiptoe to look into the distance for a moment, and shouted in surprise, "The lake in front of us should be our destination this time, right?" You took 3 steps back and 2 steps to walk to him, nodded, "If nothing else, it should be." Although the others were not as excited as the two of them, they were silently relieved. In these few days, they not only have to survive in this vast jungle, but they also have to face tens of millions of viewers outside the live broadcast camera at all times. They have to always pay attention to their behavior and not be inappropriate in the slightest. The pressure is really great. Not that big. Even Lin Jing, who was seriously injured during filming, felt unprecedented pressure this time. "I thought that I might not want to accept a full-time live broadcast program like this in the next year." Zhang Kaiwen couldn't help but cheered in the direction of the lake. As soon as he finished speaking, a clear and energetic female voice came from the woods nearby, "We have been waiting for you all day." When everyone heard the sound, they turned around and saw Sui and Zhou Yi jumping over a dead tree on the ground and walking briskly toward them. Seeing that there were almost twice as many people in the open space as when they first set out, Sui raised her eyebrows in surprise after standing still. "Hey, why are there so many people? Did another guest appear in the middle of the show?" she said in a tone of voice. Then he pulled up suddenly, "Why is there an extra panda cub?" End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 94. Chapter 94, Under the Lake. After hearing the origins of the panda cub and the few extra people in the team, Sui raised his thumbs directly at Zhang Lingzi. "Zhou Yi and I are considered old men in the field of outdoor exploration. We have never seen a panda in the wild. We have seen a few tigers and lions, but we can only hide far away. Ling's sister 11, you are this. A panda cub is not only an extremely rare species, but it can also be held in your arms and rubbed, rolled, flattened, and stroked in various ways. I really envy her to death. Let her give her a hug now, it's worth waiting for this day." He then warmly invited, "We just happened to catch fish in the lake, and we just dug a rabbit nest in the forest. Let's eat together later to celebrate our reunion." It wasn't until she reached the shore of the lake and Sui started to count how many people there were and how to distribute the food that she realized that there was one missing guest. "Are we missing one person? What's that girl's name?" Sui said and looked at Yu Hui. If she remembered correctly, the younger one seemed to have formed a team with Yu Hui at the beginning. When Zhang Ziyu was mentioned again, Yu Hui could no longer be calm, she quit midway. "Is it an accident, or?" Sui clicked the give up button on her breast pocket. "It's sort of both." Sui nodded suddenly, then looked at Zhang Lingzi who was holding the panda cub and walking towards the lake, and whispered to her boyfriend on the side, "At first, I thought that both sisters would not make it to the end, but I didn't expect that Zhang Lingzi actually persisted until the end and saved a panda cub." Zhou Yi nodded lightly, "I didn't expect it either. Now that the team has gathered, the live broadcast room has naturally been changed from the split screen at the beginning to only one live broadcast room. At this moment, the audience in the live broadcast room listened to the whispers between the two of them and started typing and posting comments. Zhang Lingzi not only persisted until the end, she was also responsible for leading the flight. Speaking of which, the biggest gain from this program is probably Zhang Lingzi. The biggest gain is naturally saving the panda cub. The second biggest gain is considered whitewashing. The live broadcast format is the easiest to expose a person's personality, but there is really nothing to blame, which is enough to explain some problems. Perhaps it's all for the sake of being dark. It seems that those gossips in the entertainment industry really shouldn't be taken at face value. Personally, I feel that Zhang Lingzi's previous development path has gone in the wrong direction, and I suggest that she participate in more programs similar to Survival Live broadcasts in the future. Indicates that I still want to see this girl shoot arrows, but I haven't accumulated enough materials just from the front. Are there any programs such as celebrity sports games in the entertainment industry recently? Can you recommend Zhang Lingzi to participate? Ancient costume martial arts dramas should also be possible. Zhang Ziyu had already turned off the barrage in the live broadcast room, but after hearing Sui talking about himself, he couldn't help but turn it on. He wanted to see if there were still viewers discussing him, but almost all he saw was Zhang Lingzi's name. Zhang Yuding was cutting fruit in the open kitchen outside when she heard a loud bang from the direction of the bedroom. She paused with the knife in her hand and asked Xiao Tao, who was cleaning the living room, "Xiao Tao, go to the bedroom, clean up the newly broken cup." Xiao Tao pursed her lips, took a broom, knocked on the door and went in. When she came out, there were already a few scratches on her hands. Zhang Yuding saw it and took it for granted. "Go and have a rest. You know where to put the medicine box. Take care of it for yourself." Entering the bedroom, Zhang Yuding put a glass of ice water in front of Zhang Ziyu, who was still a little green. "Drink some water and calm down. I'm not telling you, why are you still staring at the live broadcast room after you quit? Aren't you having trouble with yourself?" Zhang Ziyu took a sip of ice water and glanced at Zhang Yuding. He hesitated but still didn't tell Zhang Yuding about meeting his aunt. She sometimes wonders whether Zhang Yuding is her aunt's biological daughter. The relationship between mother and daughter is definitely the weirdest she has ever seen. The eldest aunt was very cold towards her daughter and told Zhang Yuding not to see her unless she had nothing to do. But to be cold, he deliberately arranged Zhang Yuding to be his manager. Zhang Yuding is very afraid of her mother. Although she is not like a mouse meeting a cat, when mother and daughter get along, Zhang Yuding is the kind who doesn't even dare to breathe. Of course, she did not dare to confirm this suspicion herself. "I don't have a job now, why can't I watch the live broadcast?" Zhang Yuding couldn't help but tilted her head and rolled her eyes. "Actually, if we think about Director Wei's drama, we might still have a chance." Zhang Ziyu shifted his gaze from Zhang Lingzi to Zhang Yuding's face. "What can I do?" Audition. As we all know, Director Wei likes to cast new actors with aura. There is a high probability that some of the characters in his new drama will be selected through auditions. Do you want to? Zhang Ziyu shook his head without thinking. "I can't bear to compete with a bunch of newcomers." Is it possible that there are no other scripts except for Director Wei's new drama recently? Yes, there are some, but not many, and the quality is average. It's incomparable to Director Wei's new drama. Do you want to act in it? Zhang Ziyu bit his lip. The eldest aunt said that everything she has been having trouble with recently is because of Zhang Lingzi. They have a relationship of ebb and flow. If one person is good, the other will not be good. But the thing that makes her uncomfortable in Zhang Lingzi hasn't been found yet. What is it? Asterisk. Zhang Lingzi, who was missed, was washing the paws of the little one on her hands by the lake. The lake water is clear under the sunset, and the light seems to penetrate directly to the bottom of the lake. Probably few people can visit the depths of this jungle. Some of the fish in the lake are not afraid of humans at all. Many of them swim to the shore and bubble out of curiosity. Zhang Lingzi felt that she could skewer at least 3 such fish with one arrow. But now that everyone has caught enough fish, she is too lazy to do it. After washing the last paw, Zhang Lingzi laid the little guy down on his back on the grass by the lake. The hair on the paw can be dried in the sun before he can turn over. Fortunately, although the little guy couldn't understand people's words, his belly was bathed in the warm light of the sunset, so he was too lazy to move. Zhang Lingzi saw that he was still obedient, so she turned around and washed her hands. After washing, she shook off the remaining water droplets on her hands and was about to stand up. She suddenly stopped and looked at the quietly rippled water. The surface of the water was so clean that there were only a few leaves falling in the wind, but underwater, she just seemed to see a huge black shadow disappearing quietly under the water. After waiting for a moment, the lake surface completely returned to calm, as if the black shadow she had just seen was just an illusion caused by her trance. Zhang Kaiwen looked back towards the lake and saw Zhang Lingzi walking along the lake. The silhouette under the sunset was so beautiful that he couldn't bear to disturb him for a while. But the fish is already grilled. Sister Zixi, come here and eat fish. Sister Zioi and brother Joe also found a pepper tree by the lake. It tastes even more delicious. Zhang Lingzi waved in the direction of Zhang Kaiwen, waited for others to walk over, and pointed to the soil under his feet. With such a rich water source, why are there no footprints of animals of all sizes by the lake? Zhang Kaiwen was stunned for a moment by the question. He looked at Zhang Lingzi's fingers carefully for a moment. He didn't know what he thought of but looked horrified. Can't you drink this water? As he spoke, he was about to reach out and dig out his throat. Zhang Lingzi, Sui and Zhou Yi should have drank the water from this lake a day ago. That's right, Zhang Kaiwen put down his hand with a nonchalant expression, and soon thought of another possibility, with a look of horror mixed with excitement. Sister Zixi, is it possible that there is a water monster in this lake, and I want to drink water? All the animals were scared away, and over time they no longer dare to come. I have only seen similar news, but I have never seen what the water monster looks like. I heard that the smallest one is as big as a house. Zhang Lingzi. Sometimes she is really curious about how this child's brain grows. There may be some kind of giant creature lurking in the water. It's understandable if you're afraid, but why are you so excited? End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 95. Chapter 95 Discovery in the Dark Night. Water Monster. After hearing Zhang Lingzi and Zhang Kaiwen's guesses, Sui shook her head and laughed. I think it is unlikely that there is a water monster. Don't be misled by some news on the internet. In fact, the conditions for the growth of water monsters are very harsh. There are more than 1,000 natural lakes in the world, but there are rumors that there are water monsters. There are no more than 10. As for Ling 11, you just said that there are black shadows under the lake. It is probably just a visual error caused by light refraction. Moreover, Zhou Yi and I have been at the lake for more than a day and have not found any in the lake. What movement? Zhang Kaiwen has been somewhat convinced, but he is still a little reluctant. Then why are there no traces of animals on this lake? Do they not come to drink from such a large water source? This time it was Zhou Yi who answered, maybe there are some plants growing around the lake that animals don't like. We have encountered this phenomenon before. Su Zhao reached out and patted the back of Zhang Kaiwen, whose shoulders were slumped. Okay, don't worry about this, let's eat. After saying that, he glanced in the direction of Zhang Lingzi and saw that the man had already picked up Zizai at his feet and walked forward. Standing at the end by the lake, Su Zhao was about to catch up with everyone, but he couldn't help but look back at the lake behind him. I didn't think so before, but now looking at the lake, it seems a little too quiet. There was a burst of ha 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 in the live broadcast room. Zhang Lingzi and his younger brother have a lot of imagination. Can ordinary people think of water monsters? Sui is still a professional, and a being who can grow into a water monster has to live in this world for at least hundreds of years. The survival of the fittest is the survival of the fittest in nature. How can you see a lake and think there is a water monster in it? There is a high probability that there will be no water monsters, but there is a possibility of big fish. When I just watched the two people standing by the lake seriously discussing the possibility of the existence of water monsters, I almost believed it. Who makes John Lingzi's expression look so serious and his brother's expression so rich? It's really contagious. Inexplicably, I felt that the plastic siblings just now were a bit cute. Why should I break it? John Lingzi, who was praised for being cute for the first time in her life without realizing it, just took the grilled fish from Sui and took a bite in silence. Although Sui and Zhou both denied the possibility that there was something in the water, she felt that it made sense after hearing it. However, she trusts her intuition more. But since no one believes it, and the mention of water monsters will indeed cause panic among the less courageous people present, let's stop the topic here. As long as they don't go into the water, the existence she still thinks is possible will never come to the shore. John Kaiwan's interest faded as quickly as it came. Since the exploration experts present felt that this guess was unreliable, he quickly put the water monster guess behind him. But there was another person in the live broadcast room who was also silently looking at the lake in the corner with only a small lens. Su Xingyuan was also asking Wei Kei at this moment, is there really a water monster in this lake? Wei Kei was silent for a moment and gave him an ambiguous answer, it's hard to say. Through the screen, you cannot be immersed in the scene, and naturally you cannot feel what the scene is like. But based on his observations of Zhang Lingzi in the past few days, this girl would never say that there was a water monster in the lake for no reason. Regardless of whether there is a water monster in the lake or not, she must have sensed something unusual. When everyone finished eating, they looked up and saw that the moon had quietly appeared in the sky, and there was also a moon in the lake not far away. The moon in the sky did not move, but a breeze blew up on the lake, causing the moon in the water to sway gently, causing a continuous silver glow to ripple. Under the bright and clear moonlight, everyone was not sleepy for a while and simply sat around and chatted. The relaxed atmosphere also infected the audience who stayed in the live broadcast room, and the discussion about water monsters also quietly disappeared. Until the moon was in the middle of the sky, two people were left to keep watch, and then the others prepared to rest. There are many people in the team now, and there are only two girls. Neither Zhang Lingzi nor Sui has been assigned to stay vigil. Sui simply took Zhang Lingzi to sleep in the only tent. You are all here now. The recording of the show will probably be over tomorrow. Let's sleep comfortably tonight and ignore the grown men outside. Zhang Lingzi was enthusiastically dragging the panda cub into the tent before she could recover from the panda cub in her arms. It would inevitably be a bit embarrassing to go out, so I had to take the sleeping bag handed over by Sui and say thank you. Why are you so polite? Come on, let's go to one side and Zay Zay will be between us finally, we can experience what it's like to sleep with Zay Zay, a panda. Zhang Lingzi. She would be a little suspicious that what this girl Su wanted to invite was actually the panda cub, and she did it by the way. When Sui couldn't put it down and touched the panda cub at her hand, she finally fell asleep, and Zhang Lingzi, who was lying on the other side of the tent, slowly opened her eyes. She didn't want to sleep in a closed space with other people. It wasn't that she disliked the other person's sleeping position or appearance, but she was simply not used to sleeping with others. As an emperor, how can he allow others to sleep soundly beside his couch? In her last life, she could only let herself sleep without any precautions if she was surrounded by the personal female officer Qing Yuan, and under the protection of the emperor's Suanya guards, and at most Shen mocking. Even if you have trust in other people, it will not exceed 10 points. With no more than a full degree of trust, she thinks there is a possibility of betrayal, so how can she sleep soundly? Not to mention that this was only the second time she and Sui met. Tilted his head slightly, he met the eyes of the panda Zay Zay looking over. The little guy probably slept too much in the arms of her, John Kaiwan and others during the day, which made him less sleepy. With one layer of tents separated, the wind noise outside was much quieter. Except for the slight noise caused by the activities of the people responsible for the night watch, the entire jungle lakeside area fell into silence. Zhang Lingzi touched the little guy's head and quietly looked up at the slowly moving shadow falling on the roof of the tent. As the night wore on, the viewers in the live broadcast room also exited and fell asleep. Su Zhao opened his eyes and woke up Zhang Kaiwan, who was sleeping next to him. "Wake up, it's our turn to keep vigil." The two walked to the fire and made a simple handover with Yu Hui and Zhou Yi, who had been watching for the first half of the night. Zhang Kaiwan was just about to sit down on the wooden pier where Yu Hui had just been sitting when he saw that the tent door not far opposite was blocked by someone. Opening it from the inside, Zhang Lingzi bent slightly and walked out. He quickly lowered his voice and asked, "Sister Zixi, why are you up too?" Zhang Lingzi waved her hand towards him and pointed in the direction of the woods to the side. Zhang Kaiwan immediately understood, "Then be careful." Zhang Lingzi nodded lightly and walked toward the woods nearby. The fire was getting further and further away from him, and the leaves above his head were blocking the moonlight, so it was much darker in the forest than by the lake. But after walking to a suitable distance, Zhang Lingzi didn't stop and quickly walked through the small forest to a quieter lake. There was only one big tree facing the lake. It was thicker than any she had seen before, but it grew diagonally towards the lake. Almost half of the branches and leaves were hanging in the water, as if they were being held by something heavy. After being suppressed for a long time, he grew into such a state that he had to compromise. The moonlight finally shone again, and Zhang Lingzi lowered her head and looked at the ground in front of her. She saw the shadow of a huge thing, quietly swallowing her shadow. At the same time, wet water vapor is also coming from behind. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 96. Chapter 96 Millennium Black Turtle. Zhang Lingzi slowly looked back, and then met a pair of almost pure black eyes. But the eyes were small compared to the creature in front of him. Without him, his body would be too big. The head will now be stretched out to the height of an adult. The large and bulky limbs support the heavy shell, which is almost 5 meters long. It suddenly looks like a car that can be seen everywhere on city streets. Although these eyes did not express aggression, and turtles are known to be docile, this was limited to turtles smaller than humans. To be cautious, Zhang Lingzi took 2 steps back without leaving any trace. As a result, the other party slowly moved towards her. Zhang Lingzi. Are you targeting her or something? Zhang Lingzi was inexplicably startled when she looked at the pair of dark blue eyes that could be vaguely seen under the moonlight, with a hint of eagerness in them. The steps that were originally planned to continue retreating stopped in place. Even after a few breaths of silence, she took a step forward. Now, with the help of the moonlight, she could even see clearly the mottled lines on the head of the big turtle in front of her. When she found a scar almost as big as the mouth of a bowl from the lines that were full of traces of time, she couldn't help but take a breath. The turtle has lived for thousands of years. Even in her previous life, when she was an emperor and stood at the top of power, she had never been seen, let alone heard of. But the creature in front of her, which has been recorded in history as a symbol of longevity, has truly spanned 1,000 years and reappeared in front of her. She still remembers this scar. Thinking about it, it must have been her 3rd year on the throne. The turmoil between the government and the public had just settled down, but this stability was limited to the capital. There were still voices in the local area that were dissatisfied with her proclaiming the emperor as a woman. So she decided to pay a private visit incognito. This is the kind of private visit that even the court officials in Beijing intend to hide. She originally planned to bring two people, one was Qing Yuan, who was used to it, and the other was the captain of the Xianyu Guard. One to take care of and one to guard and protect is enough. At the end of her journey, Shen Mocking accidentally learned of her plan. So the team of private interviewers on Weibo expanded from 3 to 4 people. This black turtle was rescued when she first paid a private visit incognito and punished local corrupt officials. The black turtle was naturally not that big at that time, but it had lived for almost 200 years. It was raised by a family that had been practicing medicine for generations and took 3 generations of hard work to raise it. Because a lot of medicinal materials beneficial to animals were used in the process of raising them, black turtles were also called medicinal turtles at that time and the local area. The shells they shed had much higher medicinal value than those of ordinary turtles. But because of this, he was coveted by others. The local county governor had been addicted to drinking and for half his life, and his body was almost exhausted as he got older. He accidentally learned that there was such a medicinal turtle under his rule, and he followed the devil and wanted to use such a medicinal turtle to stew soup to prolong his life. The people who raise medicine turtles naturally don't want to do so. Although black turtles are just domesticated animals, after so many years, to their family, they have become no different from family members. What is the difference between making black turtles stew in soup and killing their relatives? The result of a flat refusal was that the county guard found an excuse and the whole family was imprisoned in the state prison and sentenced to exile. Naturally, the black turtle became an ownerless thing. When she arrived with her troops, Xian Turtle's head had already been pressed to the ground. A big hole was made on his head and he was forced to bleed. The county guard stood aside and couldn't wait to pick up a bowl of warm turtle blood. He wanted to drink directly, but she pulled out her sword and wiped her neck with it. It's a pity that the family was already in exile at that time, and their life or death was uncertain. She could only send someone to take in the dying Suangi first and treat it. After the black turtle was rescued, the whereabouts of the family could not be found. She wanted to continue her private visit incognito. It was undoubtedly too conspicuous to bring such a big turtle with her, so she simply released such a big guy when she passed by a swamp. Whether he lives or dies in the future depends on this guy's destiny. But she never imagined that after 1,000 years, she would meet this black turtle again one day. How could she not sigh at the wonder of the world? When she watched Black Turtle leave, she did say that since she has already lived 200 years, she might as well live a little longer, but she did not expect that this guy lived for 1,000 years. With whose land's water, turned into deep lakes. If you think about it, you must be over 1,200 years old. Yes, you have lived a long enough time. After all these years, it seems that you can still recognize me. It seems that your IQ has also increased. Zhang Lingzi finished talking to herself and suddenly thought, can you understand what I'm saying? If you do, just nod. She naturally didn't wait to nod. The two pairs of eyes of one person and one turtle looked at each other quietly for a moment. The black turtle suddenly moved towards the lake. Zhang Lingzi suddenly turned her head and looked at the forest behind her. Who is it? Su Zhao's voice came over, but he didn't get any closer. It's me. Seeing that you haven't come back for so long, Xiao Zhang and I are a little worried. Zhang Lingzi looked back at the figure of Suangi quietly submerging into the lake, turned around and walked back to the road without hesitation, and replied as he walked, I'm fine, I made you worry. The scenery here is very good, so I stopped to admire it for a while. When she turned a corner, she came face to face with Su Zhao. It's okay, it's already getting late, let's go back and rest quickly. Although we won't be filming the show tomorrow, we will probably have to travel for another day. Zhang Lingzi nodded and looked back at the direction where she was just standing. She noticed early enough that Su Zhao couldn't even see her from this angle, let alone the mysterious turtle. At this moment, he breathed a sigh of relief. It's not that she can't trust Su Zhao's character, but it's that such a large black turtle is rare in the world. If it were to come out, with the speed of communication in modern society, it would probably not take more than a few minutes to spread throughout the country. There was no shortage of human beings who coveted it in the previous life, and there will definitely be no shortage in this life. Until she has enough ability to protect such a big man, staying unknown in this deep lake is the best arrangement for the black turtle. The movement of people entering the tent inevitably affected Sui, who was sleeping soundly. "Why are you going out? Is it convenient for you to go? Why didn't you ask me to come with you? I see you are sleeping soundly," Zhang Lingzi replied and untied her sleeping bag. As soon as she lay down, a furry ball came towards her. Zhang Lingzi was about to reach out and wrap her arms around him. When the little guy was less than 10 centimeters away from her, he suddenly stopped. At the same time, his little nose moved slightly, and his eyes looked over. Just a little more accusation. It seems to be saying, how can I provoke other animals when you already have it? Zhang Lingzi. She lightly touched the scar on the black turtle's head. The little thing's nose was quite sharp. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 97. Chapter 97, Leaving the Jungle. Early the next morning, everyone who was still sleeping was awakened by the sound of the propeller engine. Zhang Lingzi looked up immediately after coming out of the tent and looked at the helicopter hanging in the air for several seconds before looking back. She was not able to use a helicopter to drop it before, but now there is a helicopter to pick it up, which makes up for her little regret. Director Li is a bit generous this time, Zhang Kaiwen said without forgetting to tease the panda cub who was finally willing to nestle in Zhang Lingzi's arms. "I just didn't know that this helicopter was taking us to the village on the edge of the jungle, or fly directly to the airport." With such a huge thing rumbling overhead, everyone no longer had the time to prepare breakfast. They quickly packed their luggage and were ready to get on the plane. Although the scenery in the jungle is beautiful, after staying there for more than a week, I am feeling a little tired. The thought of returning to a prosperous and convenient city makes everyone feel like returning home. Zhang Lingzi originally wanted to say goodbye to the black turtle in the lake before leaving, but now it seems she has no choice but to give up. "I can only wait until I have the opportunity to visit again in the future." Fortunately, the helicopter did not disappoint everyone's eagerness. After a while, a rope ladder hung from the helicopter's door and dropped to the ground. There was also a safety officer who came down with the rope ladder, who was responsible for using the rope ladder to safely transport people on the ground to the aircraft. As soon as he landed, he asked directly, "Who's going up first?" Everyone looked at each other for a moment, and Zhang Kaiwen said with a bald mouth, "Ladies first." If it weren't for a mobile phone screen, Mother Zhang would have wanted to cover her son's mouth. Is the term ladies first used at this time? Sui chuckled lightly, "Then I'll do it first." Speaking, he grabbed the rope ladder with both hands, refused the safety officer's assistance, and climbed up slowly while stabilizing his body. After climbing to almost half the height of the rope ladder, Zhang Lingzi looked at the bottom and learned almost enough. She also refused the safety officer's assistance and held the ropes on both sides of the rope ladder. It's not that she's trying to make things big, but she's still not used to having people of the opposite touch her body, especially if they've never met each other once and don't know each other. The first two steps were a bit wobbly. After all, the helicopter overhead was not really motionless in mid-air. Fortunately, the situation got better as we went further back. After successfully jumping into the helicopter cabin, Zhang Lingzi felt that she could do it again. It's quite interesting, not to mention. With the two girls in the front boldly showing off, even if the boys behind were afraid of heights, they would be too embarrassed to ask the safety officer to assist. One by one, they gritted their teeth and climbed up without any danger. The only ones who finally boarded the plane with the help of the safety officer were the eldest Chi-Chen and the panda cub who couldn't use a rope ladder. After making sure that everyone had entered the cabin, the door was closed, and the helicopter slowly turned in a circle in the air and began to fly in the direction of the rising sun. Zhang Lingzi looked back through the helicopter's port window at the lake that looked much smaller from a high-altitude perspective, and silently said goodbye in her heart. It took me more than a week to walk on my own feet when I came here, but it only took less than an hour to go back. It was still the same open space before departure. The helicopter landed slowly. Everyone stepped off the plane one by one and faced Li Shuo's face with a bright smile and a hint of expectation. Congratulations to our guests for successfully passing the first phase of wilderness survival. As soon as he finished speaking, applause sounded from all directions. Those who applauded were the people behind the show who had never appeared in front of the camera. It was hard for the guests to film the show, and it was also not easy for these behind-the-scenes staff. The following photographers have to carry heavy machinery and follow the guests uphill and down the river. They also have to follow the path that the guests have walked. Medical staff should also stay behind the guests. If any accident occurs, they must ensure that they arrive as soon as possible to provide treatment. Even the technical team staying in the village must ensure that the live broadcast goes smoothly in this place where the signal is not very good. Everyone works in 2 12-hour shifts to deal with various emergencies in the live broadcast room. It can be said that no one can relax. The applause did not stop, and a new round of applause was added. Zhang Kaiwen stood beside Zhang Lingzi and heard applause from beside him. He was stunned for a moment and then he also applauded. At the same time, he shouted to Li Shuo and the staff behind the scenes, "Director Li and everyone have worked hard too." The audience in the live broadcast room couldn't wait to open the live broadcast room early in the morning, and what they saw was the scene of the guests and the people behind the scenes applauding each other. Why are you so moved for no reason? Seeing this scene is a little bit off guard. I have always seen the guests working hard filming the show, but I didn't notice that the staff behind the scenes are also having a hard time. Now I see them applauding each other. Does it count as a two-way trip? Well, that's an appropriate word to use here. Am I the only one who can't bear to see the show end so soon? When I think about the first episode ending later, I can't even eat breakfast. What program will I use to eat in the future? Although I don't want to give up, I still want to take stock of the guests and the staff behind the scenes. This week is indeed very tiring. Looking forward to the second issue. I haven't seen enough. I hope the second episode will have the same guests and the same faces. We have the same expectations, but there is one less guest now. If you invite another guest in the next issue, please be more cautious. Don't invite those who can't bear the hardship and always hold back. They don't say anything if they don't want to see it. It's also depressing to watch. If we invite female guests, we can have a few more like Zhang Lingzi. Expect. Amid a series of expectations on the barrage, the applause finally stopped intermittently. Li Shuo tilted his head and cleared his throat. In the past few days, those of us staying in the village have discussed setting up several awards based on the feedback from the viewers in the live broadcast room, and are planning to award them to everyone before the end of the show. It's a happy ending to our show. Hearing that there were prizes to be won, Zhang Kaiwen instantly transformed into a praising person. What prizes are there, Director Li? Although Li Shuo was speechless about Zhang Kaiwen during the filming of the show, and I don't know how many people there were, he was quite satisfied with his current support and happily announced the answer: there are 7 awards in total. Zhang Kaiwen reacted very quickly: we only have 7 guests now, so there won't be exactly 1 award for each one, right? Li Shuo. Actually, you don't have to react so quickly this time. He just pretended not to hear this, and Guzi continued: the 7 awards are, the most loved by the audience, the most surprising guest, the best at creating an atmosphere, the most down-to-earth and capable, the best newcomer, and the most best individual responsibility award and best partner award. After finishing speaking in one breath, Li Shuo was just about to take a breath when he heard that Zhang Kaiwen was already helping him distribute awards to the guests. I shouldn't be the winner of the audience favorite award, right? Li Shuo. Where does this kid get his confidence? End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 98. Chapter 98. Zai Zai also has a prize. If these boastful words were uttered by any other guest except Zhang Kaiwen, it would not be surprising if they would arouse ridicule from the audience in the live broadcast room. But when Zhang Kaiwen said this, there was only one ha 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 on the barrage. My brother is as confident as ever. My brother, have you noticed Director Li's speechless expression? He probably wants to tell you, damn it, kid, please shut up. I've already told you what I, the director, can say later. I have a bold guess about the awards just announced by Director Li. The most popular audience award is not as suitable for my younger brother as the best atmosphere award. I feel that this award is tailor-made for my younger brother. The correct answer is the previous one, so brother, you'd better shut up, otherwise you will find out later how embarrassing it is that you guessed wrong. Brother, do you know what embarrassment is? Looking at the barrage in the live broadcast room, Mother Zhang couldn't help but raise her hands to cover her face. She didn't want to admit that this precious son was her own. Fortunately, Li Shuo got his job back in time. He coughed slightly and raised his voice and announced, now let's announce the Best Partner Award. Congratulations to the guests Sui and Zhou Yi. As soon as he finished speaking, a staff member behind him held out a bouquet of freshly picked and tied flowers, as well as a paper tube tied with a blue ribbon, and handed it to Sui, who stepped forward to receive the award. In Zhou Yi's hands. Sui took the bouquet, and Zhou Yi took the paper tube and opened it. After seeing the contents on the paper tube clearly, he couldn't help but be surprised for a moment. This expression can arouse the curiosity of other guests present and the audience in the live broadcast room. What exactly is written on the paper? Fortunately, Zhou Yi soon turned the content on the paper to the camera, and everyone was able to see it clearly. I saw two lifelike little figures drawn on the corner of the paper. Even if the faces could not be seen clearly, people could recognize at a glance that the figures drawn on them were Sui and Zhou Yi, and in the middle of the paper, there were 5 the big calligraphy, Best Partner Award. The pen moves like a dragon and a snake. You can see at a glance that he has deep calligraphy skills. Before anyone could wonder who drew the certificate, Li Shuo took the first step to explain to everyone, how about it? My calligraphy and painting skills are pretty good, right? Everyone. This is more than good. However, it is hard to believe that as a director of a variety show, he can still have such profound attainments in calligraphy and painting. Zhang Kaiwen was even more outspoken and directly questioned, is this really what you drew, Director Li? Li Shuo raised an eyebrow at him, don't believe it? Indeed, somewhat. I don't care whether you believe it or not. After pretending to be annoyed, Li Shuo continued to do business. Now we announce the second award. Best Personal Responsibility Award, Lin Zheng. Best Newcomer Award, Yu Hui. The Most Practical and Competent Award, Su Zhao. The Best Atmosphere Award, Zhang Kaiwen. Everyone's prize is a fresh bouquet of flowers and an exquisite certificate. The shapes of the people painted on the certificates are all different, but they are all lifelike. They even chose the most eye-catching scene that happened to each person during their journey of survival. By this point, no one would doubt that this was Li Shuo's work. After all, if we hadn't followed it carefully from beginning to end in the live broadcast room, we might not have been able to capture the most outstanding performance of everyone. As a director, Li Shuo can only do his best. When the first few people won the award, the live broadcast room was full of comments such as well deserved and the award is very suitable for me, and the program team did their best to come up with such awards. When Zhang Kaiwen's award was announced, it turned into a series of unkind ha ha ha. Sure enough. Looking at my brother's depressed expression, I can eat an extra bowl of rice. Isn't it a bit unkind, haha. Brother, don't be sad, you deserve it. No, please let me laugh a few times. After John Kaiwan closed his certificate of award, he was still a little unwilling. He turned to look at Li Shuo, who was standing next to him, and asked with the last glimmer of hope, Director Li, there are 2 awards left, and only Sister Zixi has not accepted the award. Yes, does that mean one person will win 2 awards? Li Shuo couldn't help but smile and said, that's not you either. Zhang Lingzi noticed that Director Li glanced towards her when he said this. She did not expect that she would win the remaining 2 awards, but looked down thoughtfully at the man who was sleeping in her arms. Zhenxiang's Zizai. When Zhang Kaiwan returned to the line where the guests were standing in despair, the penultimate award was announced. The guest who surprised the audience the most, Zhang Lingzi, please come on stage to receive the award. When announcing this award, Li Shuo sounded a little more emotional. Even when he was thinking of awards for Zhang Lingzi before deciding on the current award, he had already rejected several awards, such as the Best Breakthrough Award, the Best Performance Award, etc., but in the end, he still chose the one that impressed the audience the most. The surprise guest just feels that this is more in line with the current Zhang Lingzi in the eyes of the audience. Likewise, at this moment, he was also one of the audience. Zhang Kaiwan was not sad that he had won the Atmosphere Category Award. When he heard Director Li announce the award, the first thing he thought of for this surprise award was Zhang Lingzi. He guessed that this time he was right and he was very happy. Sister Zixi, go and receive the award, while I hold Zizai. No need. Zhang Lingzi, who guessed that Zizai would also be on stage, refused to help. When she got to the place where she received the award, she put Zizai on her shoulders. Although the little guy was drowsily asleep, he still subconsciously looked for her. He settled into a comfortable position and continued to sleep. With his free hand, he took the bouquet and the certificate. Zhang Lingzi, like the others in front, opened the certificate and saw her portrait on it. The person in the painting is actually not wearing the uniform he is wearing at the moment, but a small figure in armor holding a bow and shooting arrows. But it has to be said that even though she used part of her imagination, the charm of the characters was accurately captured, almost bringing back memories of her previous life when she was young and fighting. The artist's decades of skill have not been lost. The small portrait was also displayed in front of other guests and the audience in the live broadcast room. It also amazed many people at the scene and in front of the screen. There was silence for a moment, and everyone couldn't help but watch it intently. The barrages in the live broadcast room are posted very diligently. This little portrait makes me feel Director Li's preference. You can tell from the award just now Director Li thinks Zhang Lingzi is the surprise of this show, so he prefers her, so I'm not surprised. Indeed, Zhang Lingzi figured out this counterattack. Am I the only one who is curious about the final winner of the heavyweight award that is most loved by the audience? Could it be Zhang Lingzi? There is no one else who can win 2 major awards by himself. It just so happened that the guests thought so too. However, Zhang Lingzi called Zhang Kaiwan over and directly entrusted him with the flowers and certificates for safekeeping. Then he hugged Zizai on his shoulders again and nodded to Li Shuo. Seeing her actions, Li Shuo knew that his position would probably not be sold to Zhang Lingzi. Looking at the other guests, they all looked in Zhang Lingzi's direction, probably thinking that the final award was also awarded to Zhang Lingzi. Only then did he feel I felt a little more at ease. I announce that the winner of the audience's favorite award is Zizai. Zhang Lingzi raised Zizai Wo in front of the camera in cooperation. Suddenly, a furry black and white face appeared in the live broadcast room, almost occupying the entire screen. At this moment, his eyes were slightly opened and he looked over in confusion. It's actually Zizai. It's true, I never expected it, but Zizai deserves this award. Our Zizai also gets a prize. Zizai is indeed the most popular. There is no doubt about it. The key point is that it is really fair to compare like this. Director Lee, I now declare that you are my God. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 99. Chapter 99 The Work of the National Treasure. John Kywin's mouth opened like an ah, and he slowly closed it after a while. Muttered in a low voice, I'm convinced. Director Lee's imagination led him to think of setting up an award for Zay, which was beyond their expectations. With John Lingzi's keenness in the second server, it was only now that he realized that it was no wonder that Zay was not given to him when he received the award. He had already expected that the last award would belong to Zay. John Lingzi held Zay, who was waving her little paws to eat the flowers in Director Lee's hand, with one hand, and opened the certificate with one hand. A very cute black and white dumpling appeared on the page, allowing other guests and the audience in the live broadcast room to see clearly. I just wanted to say that John Lingzi's painting was the best painting in the show, but when I saw Zay's painting, I didn't know how to make a selection. Then why should we choose the best one? The paintings on each certificate have their own characteristics. In summary, they are all very good. Director Lee is so good I give Director Lee a thumbs up. I just did a search on purpose, and I would be surprised if I didn't search. Now I'll give you some popular science. Director Lee, whose full name is Lee Shuo, is 45 years old. Ahem, there's a lot of information. The previous ones are all. I'll skip the basic information that can be found by searching. Let's talk about something that is not very well known. If there are mixed culture and art or related circles in the live broadcast room, they should all know that the president of our National Calligraphy and Painting Association is also named Lee, and his full name is Li. Lee Yi is 69 years old. Both of them have the surname Li. Have you guessed that they are related? Yes, President Lee is our Uncle Lee. Let me tell you, it turns out that he comes from a scholarly family. But Director Lee's career span is a bit wide with his background. Shouldn't he do some variety shows related to knowledge and art? As a result, Director Lee did a wilderness survival. It can only be said to be a personal interest. Besides, looking at this certificate, it shows that Director Lee's attainments in calligraphy and painting are still very high, and he has not disgraced the Lee family. Seeing that the barrage was about to turn completely into a discussion about the family background of the program director, finally some viewers who just wanted to watch the program couldn't stand it any longer, so they typed a reminder. I would like to remind everyone that the show is about to end. If you want to see more of Zay and several guests, please put aside the discussion about Director Lee's family background for now, okay? After 2 seconds of silence in the live broadcast room, words of reluctance began to appear again. It must end slowly. However, the audience's prayers have not yet reached the director and guests. After showing the certificate of award, John Lingzi quickly took Zay and prepared to return to the guests. Seeing this, Lee Shuo no longer cared about being reserved. Well, Mr. Zhang. John Lingzi paused for a moment, then turned around to meet Director Lee's eyes, which were a bit eager no matter how he looked at them. After reading it for 2 seconds, she finally realized that the eyes were not directed at her, but aimed at the little guy in her arms. Lee Shuo was filled with excitement after finally holding Zay in his arms as he wished. He felt that the little guy's hand was softer than he imagined. Little did he know that he couldn't help but love him and couldn't put it down, which aroused the anger of other staff members. After all the guests took a group photo in front of the camera with flowers and certificates, the live broadcast room was turned off decisively amidst the reluctance of the audience. The next second, Lee Shuo, who was holding Zay and taking a photo with the guests, was surrounded. Director Lee, you've been hugging Zay for a long enough time, let's hug him too. I promise to be gentle. 1 minute, Can you just hold me for 1 minute? No one can compete with me during this minute. I specially washed and disinfected my hands, can you let me go first? Li Shuo, who was surrounded by everyone, slow down, move gently, come one by one. Lawlessness has overtaken everything, and he hasn't had a big fight yet. Zhang Lingzi looked at the crowd in front of her but was cautious. She calmly took a few bottles of mineral water from the edge of the venue. After passing them to other guests, she opened the last bottle left for herself and took a few sips. Chen and others walked over. Professor Qi. Miss Zhang. What are your plans next? Qi Chen couldn't tell whether he was disappointed or happy at this moment. He sighed softly and replied, I borrowed the drone from the program team before and expanded the search range but still couldn't find Zai Zai's relatives. I guess this little guy is either it is separated from its relatives, but the chance is relatively small. The greater possibility is that its parents are gone, so I plan to take it away. I am not worried about adult pandas, but such a small one is absolutely impossible in the jungle. A way to survive alone. I can rest assured if I leave it to Professor Qi. She absolutely means what she says. When it comes to treating Zai Zai, even she only regards Zai Zai as a beloved little animal. However, Professor Qi and others, especially Professor Qi himself, can say that Zai Zai is the same as his own child, perhaps more so than his own child. All must be pampered. And this love comes from the heart. Even though she handed Zai Zai over when they first met, she still had some doubts. However, after getting along with her for the past few days, after seeing how patient and attentive Professor Qi and his party were to Zai Zai, she was not convinced at all. Worried. The only regret is that I won't be able to see the little guy all the time in the future. Qi Chen looked at the girl standing in front of him, and then at the program staff behind her who were busy dismantling the machines and cleaning up the venue, and an idea flashed in his mind. Smilingly said, after we separate this time, maybe Miss Zhang will be able to see Zai Zai again soon. Oh. Qi Chen smiled but said nothing. Although he is impatient, otherwise he would have rushed straight through the night after hearing the news of the discovery of wild panda cubs, but he is still cautious and will not give guarantees before the matter is confirmed. While the two were talking, Zai Zai on the other side had already been carefully hugged by the big guy in turn. As a result, instead of being messy, his fur was smooth and smooth. When Zhang Lingzi and Qi Chen walked over together, they saw that the little guy had even narrowed his eyes in comfort. Seeing this, Qi Chen sighed again. Pandas are actually quite afraid of people. There are very few who are not afraid of people and can even interact with them. Zai Zai has a social character. If he works in the future, he will definitely be the most popular one. That work. They only need to be watched from a distance by tourists while eating, playing, or even sleeping. That's their job. Zhang Lingzi. She remembered that the news she had watched before did include the scene that Professor Qi had just mentioned. The panda was eating inside the guardrail, and there were dense crowds of people watching outside the guardrail. I bet this was work. To be honest, this job made her a little envious. The salary is still high, how can one be so relaxed? End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 100. Chapter 100. I am also very picky, okay. Finally got his mobile phone back after more than a week's absence, but Zhang Kaiwen was not even interested in turning it on. He just looked at the car that was getting further and further away from his sight, and said with reluctance, "My Zai Zai." Zhang Lingzi had just turned on her mobile phone and glanced over at the words, "If you are so reluctant to let go, how about you apply for a job as a panda breeder?" Zhang Kaiwen really thought about it, and finally wiped his face and looked away. "Sister Zixi, let me help you get your suitcase." Although being a panda breeder is indeed very happy, he still loves his current career more. As for Zai Zai, whom he couldn't let go of, he knew that he would be well taken care of by Professor Chi, so he could just visit him every once in a while. Zhang Lingzi nodded, lowered his head and clicked on the message just displayed. Lu Zhengzheng, Sister Zixi, I will get on the plane to pick you up right now. Zhang Lingzi was about to say no, she couldn't go back, so why did she need someone to pick her up? But after looking at the exact time the message was sent, he gave up. At this time, the girl should already be on the plane as expected. Having been on a plane several times, she now knows that people have to turn off their mobile phones or adjust them to airplane mode on the plane. In short, they cannot receive the messages she sent. Li Shuo came with Zhang Kaiwen, who was dragging his suitcase. Seeing him coming, several other guests who were busy turning on their phones to contact relatives and friends also gathered around. Our helicopter will take everyone to the nearest airport from here later. It will take about 2 hours. At that time, the program team will buy you a return ticket, but you will be the one to take the plane. Now you can contact your agent or assistant to pick it up. Sui and Zhou Yi looked at each other, smiled and shook their heads. There is no need for the two of us, we can just go back together. Lin Jing and Su Zhao did not have this plan, but the reason was that they did not have an assistant for themselves. Yu Hui and Zhang Kaiwen nodded almost at the same time and said in unison, our assistant is already on the way. Zhang Lingzi just nodded, and then saw Director Li looking towards her. Maybe we will cooperate with you in the second issue of Wilderness Survival, or add a contact information so that we can contact you in the future. Facing the admiration and expectation in Director Li's eyes, Zhang Lingzi silently reported her number. Others also followed suit. Originally, only a few people added Director Li's contact information, but in the end, everyone added the contact information of other people, and they were all private and not work accounts, and it came to an end. Before boarding the plane, Li Shuo stopped Zhang Lingzi alone. I saw you shooting archery on a show a few days ago, so I took it upon myself to show that video to a director who is making movies and TV shows. Someone may contact you when I get back, so just be mentally prepared. Zhang Lingzi still doesn't know who the director Li Shuo is talking about, but thinking about it, this kind of recommendation is equivalent to the recommendation from officials in the court in the past. Only those who appreciate it will recommend it to others. Thank you, Director Li, for your kindness. Li Shuo waved his hand. I also think you are more in line with the character image he wants. However, after thinking about it, I have to remind you that he is very picky and must strive for perfection in everything. You must do it, be mentally prepared. As for the psychological preparation, it is naturally the psychological preparation that is not regarded as being brushed off. Zhang Lingzi smiled at this. That's right, me too. Since she woke up in this world, she has done a total of 2 jobs. The first, Let's Travel Together, and then the Wild Survival that just ended now, but these 2 jobs were accurately calculated as taking over the mess left by the original owner, and she classified them as something she had to do. Even so, she still strived for perfection. Now that the mess at work of the original owner has basically been cleared up, she will not let Tong Yu, the agent, choose the next work, but she will also participate in it herself. It only depends on whether she is willing to do it or not, and there will never be anything she has to accept. The director Li mentioned was very picky about the actors, but she would also be picky about the director and even the script. No matter how famous the director is or how popular the script is, if she doesn't like it, she won't accept it. If she compromises for these things, then she won't be her. Looking at each other, Li Shuo slowly softened his original serious expression, and felt more emotion and expectation in his heart. He has known Lao Wei for more than 20 years. He can clearly see how arrogant he is. I am afraid that no one in the circle can compare with him. Who can make him have ability, talent, and family background? Woolen cloth. And the Miss Zhang in front of him now seems to be no less generous. he is really looking forward to the scene where the two people stand together to evaluate each other's qualifications to cooperate with him. It will definitely be exciting. This conversation led to Zhang Lingzi being the last one to get on the helicopter. Zhang Kaiwen saw the person coming up and quickly patted the seat next to him. "Sister Zixi, come and sit here." When Zhang Lingzi went over to sit down, before she could start to buckle her seat belt, Zhang Kaiwen beat her to it again. "Why are you so diligent? Is there any?" Zhang Kaiwen pretended to scratch the back of his head. "Aren't I always very diligent?" Su Zhao, who was sitting opposite, couldn't help laughing. "Tell me, what's the matter? If you want to say something, just say it quickly. If you don't say anything, I'll fall asleep." Already deeply aware of Zhang Lingzi's habit of keeping his word and going to sleep, Zhang Kaiwen did not dare to continue to consider his words and said bluntly, "My agent just sent me a message, saying that there is a family that has recently been among young people. A popular sports brand wants to find me as a spokesperson. It just so happens that they have recently released a new couple series. Isn't it because of the good interaction between me and Sister Zixi in the show? I want you to follow me, Sister Zixi. Do you want to film this couple series together, Sister Zixi?" Zhang Lingzi had already raised her head slightly and closed her eyes when she was halfway through listening. Following Zhang Kaiwen's words, she quickly guessed the pros and cons, and even what the three parties mentioned in these words thought. "No way, I'm used to it. Speaking of which, the original person's reputation is not as good as that of Zhang Kaiwen. The only thing that can compare to him is the number of black fans. The conclusion drawn from this is, without Zhang Kaiwen, that sports fashion brand would never consider her. Now that the show has just been filmed, the sports fashion brand has asked Zhang Kaiwen to endorse it, which shows that the popularity of the show should be pretty good. When filming a couple series, I thought of pairing her with Zhang Kaiwen. It can be seen that this brand also intends to capitalize on the popularity of the show. No matter from the surface or the purpose of this matter, both parties want to create a win-win situation, which is good." However, even though she had never considered marriage in her previous life, the word love was sacred in her heart from beginning to end. She was asked to shoot a couple's commercial with Zhang Kaiwen, and even do some intimate actions between lovers in front of the camera. Just thinking about it, her first thought was that she didn't want to. So just when Zhang Kaiwen felt that his proposal could not be rejected, he saw the person next to him lowering his eyes and shaking his head slowly but firmly. "No." He was stunned for a moment, full of disbelief. Why? End of this chapter.